Hey everybody, it's Allie, and welcome to our Y&R chat. Today is Sunday, July 14th, 2013. Ooh! This was a good week in Y&R. From beginning to end, I was engaged in this week's show. There were some things I loved, there were some things I was like, and everything in between. I was just in it. I have so much to say this week, it's almost hard to focus myself, but I'm gonna start at the beginning with Abby and Kyle standing in Jack's living room discussing the fact that she saw him kissing Phyllis, his father's girlfriend, and Abby is like saying it out loud. They're both just talking freely about it, about the fact that Kyle kissed Phyllis when Jack walks in the door, overhears enough to know that something is up, and Jack confronts them. He asks, "What are you talking about? What's going on here? Abby, what is it?" I mean, Kyle's fumbling for words. Abby doesn't want to be the one to tell Jack about the huge betrayal that has just occurred. Jack was so good this week, and in that scene, he was trying to put together the pieces of what possibly could have happened, that his girlfriend and his son were caught kissing. I could feel on Jack's face and in his whole body language that he was truly shocked and furthermore humiliated that Phyllis could make a fool out of himself, or out of him like that. And he was trying initially to justify it and say, "Oh, well, it was an accident, right? I mean, you kissed, but it was an accident. That's not what I'm thinking that it is. You accidentally fell onto each other's lips, right? That's what happened?" I mean, he could not believe his ears. And Kyle was not doing a very good job of explaining it. Jack looked like a tea kettle that was just getting ready to whistle. I mean, the steam was practically blowing out his ears. I just kept thinking, ooh, Phyllis is in big trouble. There is no way she's gonna be able to talk her way out of this one. Jack throws Kyle and Abby out of the house. Understandably, he just wants a moment alone to process what the heck has just happened to his life. And okay, weird thing, Kyle and Abby, after having just been through this with Jack, go out for coffee afterwards. And they're just sitting at Crimson Lights, kind of talking back and forth, and just something about that scene seemed a little too light. I mean, of course they were acknowledging it, saying basically that was awkward, but this should be devastating. I feel like throughout the reveal of the whole paternity thing, there were and in other storylines on Y&R, there were so many chances for us to really dig into a moment. Like, can you imagine the guilt of knowing that you've just had a type of sexual encounter with your father's girlfriend and processing how guilty you would feel? I mean, Kyle is focused on Summer in this moment, thinking about Summer and how he wants to make it up to her, everything that happened with her mother, but he should be thinking about what he just did to his father, or how this could affect his father's life. Maybe I'm overly sensitive toward my parents' feelings, I don't know, but I would be worried about how this was going to impact the relationship with my father for the rest of my life. Am I the only one? But no, Kyle he wants to call Summer on the phone, and he tells her that he decides he wants to start over with Summer. Just the second that it's clear things aren't going to work out with Phyllis because your little secret has been unearthed. I felt like there was a connection there. I felt like Kyle was ready to dispose of Summer when he thought, hey, there could be a hot, sexy thing going on the side with Phyllis, who I've always kind of had a crush on. But the second that became obvious that it's not going to work out, he wants to go back to Summer. I don't know. Kyle is just all over the place. He drives me crazy. Phyllis Phyllis comes home from Chicago where she's been searching for Summer. And she walks in the front door of Jack's house. And Jack doesn't pull any punches. He immediately confronts Phyllis. He tells her he knows everything. Of course, Phyllis thinks that Jack is talking about the paternity, but it becomes quite clear that her other little problem has come to light. So Jack is just telling her about, you know, how he feels betrayed, and she doesn't bother to deny it. She, in fact, tells him, I had my reasons for kissing your son. It was because I had to protect my daughter. Why don't you just sit down? Strap yourself in, because I've got some news for you. And Jack is immediately like, what are you talking about? You had to protect your daughter from what? And Phyllis just blurts it out. I had to protect her because she's our daughter. She's your daughter. And Jack's face, he looked flabbergasted. What? How? How on earth could that be possible? And Phyllis explains about Nick's role in this, and Jack doesn't, I think, know where to put his anger. He's initially mad at Phyllis, but now he has this reason to be mad at Nick. And Jack even said, what kind of person would lie about the father of their child? And then it was kind of hilarious because the next scene was Chelsea and Dylan. And it was funny because as soon as Jack said that, I said out loud, Chelsea would lie about the father of her child. And then it was the next scene with Chelsea and Dylan. I had to laugh about that. Did you guys notice? It was a little bit of a comedic moment in the midst of a very serious moment. Oh, Jack is so mad. He's so mad at Phyllis, and rightfully so. He has a billion questions. He asks, why, Phyllis, would you not follow up on these paternity test results? Jack went through Summer's birth with Phyllis. He was married to Phyllis at the time when she had this affair with Nick. It was a big deal who the father of the baby was going to be. It was going to change a course of history. And Jack asked her, why would you not take charge of those results yourself? Why would you even let Nick be the one? And I agree completely. I've been saying that since this whole thing has been going down. I mean, it makes no sense other than I believe that both Phyllis and Nick wanted those results to be that Summer was Nick's child. All of the blame is being put onto Nick with this paternity switch. But Phyllis has to take some responsibility for that. She just let Nick make that call, let Nick take care of who the father of her child was. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. She should have at least tried to like take charge of this and take charge of her marriage, because I just felt so bad for Jack, because at the time when Summer was conceived, Phyllis thought that she couldn't have children, and it was Phyllis's inability to conceive that really, really contributed to the breakup of her and Jack's marriage. They had gone to doctors upon doctors. Jack wanted a child so badly, and Phyllis wanted to give him a child so badly, and it was devastating to them that they would not be able to build this family that they wanted, when all along, if the twist is correct and there are no other twists on the horizon, all along they were able to build this family. They missed out on a life that they really could have had, and now to realize it in YNR time, 18 years later, is devastating to Jack. And I was with him the whole way. I could completely feel every step of emotion along the way with Jack. He tried to throw Phyllis out of his house immediately. It was just like, get out of my face. I don't want to see you. Jack understands, I think, that Phyllis's, and I think he still holds on to the fact that his relationship with Phyllis was torn apart and ended ultimately because she had this affair with Nick, and Jack has never let go of that. I think Jack has always loved Phyllis, always resented her for having that affair, of course, and now he's saying to her in this moment, why was your loyalty to Nick? Why did you have to construct this lie? Why did you have to go ahead and create this elaborate plan to kiss my son and lure him away from Summer to protect Nick? Jack sees it as Phyllis protecting Nick's feelings, always having protected Nick's feelings. Why didn't Phyllis just treat Jack like an adult, tell him what was going on, and work together as a couple to resolve the situation? Jack wasn't going to go out and blab it all over town. I mean, Phyllis's argument is we had to keep this a secret because we were afraid of Summer's reaction, if that Summer was going to go and do something horrible. Well, that has nothing to do with Jack. You should have told Jack immediately. There was never a real there was never a real reason for not telling Jack. I don't know why she did this. And Peter Bergman was so good. Like, he made the whole thing. After he kicked Phyllis out, she left, he has this moment alone, and he's just sitting on the couch, and he's crying, like a baby in a way. Just, he was sobbing that sob that you do, like, when you almost can't even breathe. And I know that sob, I know you guys know that sob, just where everything feels like it's collapsing in on you, and he feels so hurt, he feels so angry, he feels so cheated out of a life that he could have had. And there's this moment where I think he gets up and he wants to run out the door, and I'm not sure who he wanted to confront, but he's stopped by John's ghost, and John's ghost tells him, Jack, don't make the situation any worse than it already is. And he decides, all right, I can't go out and I can't hit something, I can't confront someone, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to kind of wallow. I want, you know, his instinct is that, you know, maybe he wants to go back to drinking. He still has the problem with the pills, even though he hasn't done them. He still has that urge. He wants to medicate. If he can't do something outwardly, he wants to do something internally. And Tracy shows up just as he is about to pour himself a bottle, really, when he's about to drink a bottle of scotch, and she talks it through with him. He reveals to her everything he has just experienced with Phyllis and all of his feelings, and Tracy can't believe it, but always being supportive, always being the level head in the family. Gosh, Tracy's probably the most like John. I've never thought of that before, but it is probably true. But Tracy tells Jack that it's not too late to have this relationship with Summer, that he really wants. Jack feels like, oh my gosh, I have this daughter, I would love to get to know her, but I don't think Summer's gonna want that. I don't want to push myself on her, and that's understandable. But Tracy says you can have a relationship with Summer. He doesn't want to have anything to do with Phyllis. At this point, he feels done with her. And Tracy oddly defends Phyllis. I guess the main reason that Phyllis didn't tell Jack was because she had a concern for his relapse. That is true. Okay, I'm gonna have to retract that a little bit. Phyllis, from her perspective, didn't want Jack to have a relapse upon learning this information, but also didn't want, Summer to have a bad reaction. But I just feel like Jack is still an adult. He still is able to process the information. I don't think he's that fragile. I don't see how telling him a month or two down the road is going to hurt him any less than telling him initially. It felt like it still feels like a little bit of an unnecessary lie. But Tracy really kind of got in there and backed up Phyllis. Tracy's been kind of against Phyllis the entire time she found out that they started up their relationship again. But Tracy says, I think Phyllis was rightly concerned. Whatever she did, I think she was coming from a right place. And I don't know if Jack is going to be able to forgive her, though. I think he sees this as such a horrible betrayal from people that he trusted, people that he loved. For crying out loud, he practically raised Nick. I mean, Nick was like a son to him. And now to feel betrayed by everyone in his life, Jack is hurting. And he is looking for a place to put it. Just wait, though, until he and Nick come face to face next week. That is going to be an explosive encounter. When Summer found out about Kyle's dumping her, she ran away to Chicago, and Phyllis and Nick follow her, and they start looking at the different modeling agencies in Chicago where maybe Summer could have gone to apply for jobs. And Phyllis and Nick had a series of moments together where they're trying to resolve their relationship in the midst of this whole lie that has just exploded and is about to get bigger. This is, of course, before Phyllis had told Jack the truth. So Phyllis and Nick are in Chicago, and there was this awkward moment. They're sitting in the lobby of this modeling agency, and Phyllis doesn't want to admit to what she did in order to break up Summer and Kyle. Phyllis, up until this point, has just said, "I've done something," and Nick wants to know what it is. And he just pushes her a little bit. I mean, you could tell Phyllis wants to be out with it. I don't think Phyllis wants to tell these lies. So she just blurts out the truth to Nick. She tells him that she, had to kind of seduce Kyle to keep him away. Now, Summer has found out through her friend Courtney that Phyllis and Nick are in Chicago looking for her. So Summer does this thing where she tries to throw off her parents, tell them she's headed back to Genoa City, hopes it will get them out of town so that she can go about her business. So Nick, knowing his daughter, sees through this and says, "Let's split the difference. Phyllis, you go back to Genoa City. I'll stay here in Chicago. One of us is going to find her. One of us is going to tell her the truth." So that's when Phyllis goes and tells Jack, and Nick stays. But just before Phyllis leaves, Nick and Phyllis did have a really good talk. There's a lot to be forgiven in this situation, and I think having Phyllis just told Nick about what she did with Kyle. Did you notice that Nick didn't really have a reaction to that? He seemed to think, well, I've done so much stuff, there's no way I can possibly throw a stone at her. So it helped Phyllis, I think, to just get it off her chest, and Nick was very non-judgmental about it. And in return, Phyllis thanks him for being a good father to Summer, and she says, "I don't think I'm ever going to forgive you for what you did, but you were a good father to Summer." And she leaves. Nick ends up running into Summer at the modeling agency, and he says, "We need to talk. There's something that I need to tell you. There's something that you need to know." He takes her to this hotel room, and they start to have a discussion. Nick just starts to try to talk about it from the beginning. Nick wants to explain where he was coming from, hoping that his daughter is going to understand and forgive him. And he tells Summer all about, Cassie's death and his marriage to Sharon, and he reveals for the first time that his relationship with Phyllis was an affair. And so Summer learns for the first time that she was a product of an affair. And she seemed so disgusted in that moment, but oh my gosh, that's just the beginning of it. I'm looking at her thinking, oh girl, you don't have any idea what's about to happen to you. That is, like, she thinks that's what the big reveal is. That is not the big reveal. Nick eventually makes his way to telling her, "You're not my daughter," and tells her what he did, tries to explain it, I think, the best that Nick possibly can. And Summer had a very, I think, similar reaction to Jack in that your first instinct is to deny it. Why would you be saying this? In fact, she thinks that Nick is telling her this as just another way to keep her away from Kyle. But it was a good scene between them. I thought Nick was really tender. He seemed really defeated in the moment. It's I think one of Nick's better moments lately. Summer, I think, was better than she's ever been. She's not great. The actress is good, not great. There were definitely some points where I felt like, that reaction it feels like it should have been different. I hate to be too much of a critic, but it was mostly anger and questioning. Mostly Summer seemed to say, why now? Why would you tell me this now? Why would you ever tell me this? I mean, it's almost like learning that you're adopted, I would think, for the first time, but there's that added layer of the lie, So she's saying, why would you ever tell me this? And it slowly starts to sink in that who Kyle is. And that he's actually her brother. And it has to be, that can't even be the worst of it. There has to be so many layers of emotion going through her head at this time. She feels betrayed by the man who she always thought was her father, the man who tucked her in at night. She feels betrayed by Phyllis. She's no happier with Phyllis than she is with her father. She has a total identity crisis. She's, talking it through even to Phyllis, I think, the next day, saying, I feel now like I'm no one. I don't know who I am. I've always taken pride in the fact that I'm a Newman, and now I'm not. I'm no one. Now, being an Abbott ain't so bad, okay? You may not be a Newman, but that doesn't mean that your father was some homeless man on the street, some no-name. You're not Summer Smith. You're still an Abbott now. That's not too bad, considering the fact that you're working at Jabot with Jabot products. Like, it's not the end of the world, okay? You've gone from being extremely rich to also extremely rich. So, it's not that totally horrible, but that aspect of it anyway. But again, I hate to be super, super critical because Summer's reaction to me seemed very angry, but in the moment, I think the more difficult thing would be to reconcile that, who you are, just that, wow, the very foundation of who I am is now changed. And I don't know, I just kept, when it was all unfolding, I just kept thinking I would be collapsed upon myself the way Jack was. That was the reaction. Summer's reaction, she's younger. She has not had the life experience, yeah, it was not wonderful, but it was good. Now, Kyle is still back in Genoa City, just having kind of partaken in a betrayal with his father, with his father's girlfriend. And he's still thinking about Summer. What he's thinking about is getting back together with her. He decides he wants to make it up to her. He's really screwed things up. Yeah, he dumped Summer for her mother. Yeah, Kyle, you did kind of screw things up. So he's gone to Billy, and he's asked Billy if he can borrow the restaurant because that's where they had their first real date. And he's going to recreate a romantic moment. Their relationship together was never strong enough that made this interaction when they finally come face to face as brother and sister strong enough. That relationship didn't never floor me enough to where, I guess I just feel like I should be feeling more about that than I am. Kyle is he's so one-dimensional to me. The moment he decides that he wants Summer is the moment that he really can't have her. He's created this romantic candlelit situation. He's given her flowers. She's walked in the door. She's seeing that he's creating a magic moment, and she just tells him, we can't ever be together because you're my brother. And the words were there but the reaction just wasn't. Kyle was just like deer in the headlights, as he always is. He turns around and walks away. He can't handle it. And Summer just looks mad. I mean, I guess I truly wanted that moment to be better. I would have rather Jack told Kyle. I would have rather Jack told Kyle the whole story, that Summer is his sister, and then Kyle and Summer come together and they have just a really awkward meeting of, wow, like we both totally masturbated thinking about each other. I'm sorry, but it's true, and you're actually my sister. Like, that's the awkwardness I wanted, not him coming to her with flowers. There is more mortifyingness in there that just needs to be pulled out. The young actors are just not holding up their part. I mean, the actors certainly aren't responsible for the writings, but there was just something in there. It's not their fault. I mean, you can't compare the Summer and Kyle to someone as seasoned and who's been around as long as Peter Bergman. But I mean, personally, if it weren't for Peter Bergman's portrayal of this whole thing, I wonder if the paternity storyline would have fallen flat. I mean, Jack was just amazing. Give that man an Emmy. Before Jack learned the truth about his daughter, he went to Sharon's house to see if she had any more information about where Summer might have gone to. And he noticed that Sharon had opened the photo album. And he starts to talk to her a little bit. And Sharon opens up to Jack about her grief over the loss of her daughter, and she went on to explain to Jack some of the things that she does, some of the things that she tells herself to ease that pain, to make her feel like Cassie is still there with her. And Sharon even said to Jack something to the effect of that time isn't really linear. And I thought, well, that's an interesting statement. It was awfully philosophical for Sharon, for one. And for two, I had just theorized and just mentioned quite a while ago that I thought it would be very interesting if Y&R just flipped the whole script and went back to around the time that Cassie had died, and like, it would be crazy, but if they had like rewritten the story and Cassie never died and we just went back to that time, you know, kind of like Dallas did that whole season where Bobby had died, and then the next season they come back and he's alive and it was all a dream. And I know that that's cheesy, and everybody would probably be so ticked off. I mean, the fans would be probably enraged. But to me, I'm just looking for Y&R to do something incredible, like really, really shake up the pieces, but then follow through slowly to see where all of them fall. Not just like shake them up and then be like, yeah, this. It seems like Y&R in a lot of ways is trying to throw shocking things at us, hoping that maybe that will get people engaged again. And I guess what I'm kind of looking for is the slow build, but I like the idea of the twist that maybe Cassie never died. I had been talking several weeks ago about Cameron Grimes coming back to the show, and I thought, I was under the impression that it was not just going to be a ghost situation, that it was maybe going to be for a longer term thing. Maybe that's not the case, because just as Jack leaves, Sharon is sitting there going through pictures, longing for the daughter that she's lost, and lo and behold, Cassie, her ghost, is right in front of Sharon's face, and Sharon's talking to her and seeing her as an adult, what she would have looked like at this age. And I tell you, I do love Cameron Grimes. I am hoping that maybe she's on for a little bit longer of a stint. I know a lot of it is me being nostalgic for the time that I started watching Y&R, which was shortly before Nick and Sharon got involved, and it was revealed that she had this daughter, Cassie, and Cassie was such a good kid. Y&R really kept her on the show. I mean, you notice now, kids are recast really, really quickly. They don't nurture the young actors the way that they used to. And that's a point that Gary had called into my YNR chat voicemail and left me a comment about that really got me thinking. It's true. Cassie was a young actress that they kept on the show. They killed her eventually. But now you notice that it's just they bring the kids on. They're totally incidental. They're always running upstairs to go get cookies or, you know, over at a sleepover. The kids aren't part of the storyline. And I'm not saying I want to see kids all of the time, but Cassie was just a really good instance of them, of YNR really nurturing a young actor. In fact, I would say that that's very true about Sharon and Nick. Both of those actors were very young, very fresh-faced when they first came on the show, and they could have been recast a million different ways, but we have grown with them. I have grown up with them. So it was nice to see Cameron Grimes again. I wish that there was a way that she could get worked back into the show, because I could really get into her. She's an actress that looks different, feels different, gives me something different. She's not another one-dimensional blonde model that YNR's brought onto the show just because they look good in the outfits. I get a really good vibe off of Cameron Grimes, and I think she's turned out to be such a lovely young woman, and I would love to see her some more. Now, Sharon's whole delusion is another story, unfortunately. Sharon is talking to Cassie, talking through the emotions that she's going through right now, and talking about her relationship with Nick. And Sharon explains to Cassie that she feels that she's the only one in Nick's life that understands what it means to lose a child, and therefore that is what is going to reconnect them. Sharon is reaching out for an illusion, and seeing Cassie, I think, was the visual representation of that. What Sharon is reaching for, what Sharon is justifying in her mind, is not really there. Sharon seems to have convinced herself that since Summer is no longer Nick's daughter, she can reset everything, that she can go back to how it was, where it was. And even Cassie's ghost was warning her against this type of thinking, that it may not turn out the way she thinks it's going to. I received several really good voicemails and comments this week about Sharon, and a really good one came from Brianna, who just lovely person, left me a very sweet voicemail, and really got me thinking about Sharon's logic here. Why does this revelation about Summer's paternity equal a Nick and Sharon reunion in Sharon's mind? What makes her think that because Nick has gone through this quote-unquote loss of a child, that automatically means he's going to want her back? A lot of water has flowed under that bridge. And I think, again, Sharon is reaching for something. Unfortunately, it's not really there. There are a million different ways that Sharon's character could go. She needs to get a career. She needs to focus on the children that she already has. Another amazing voicemail from Patricia mentions to me, what about Faith? What about the child that she does have? Why does Sharon, at this point specifically, seem to idealize the daughter that she lost? And some of that is natural. I think that it makes sense that she would, for lack of a better word, romanticize her relationship with Cassie because she's no longer there. And I'm guilty of that. You think of the people that you've lost, and they automatically just become somehow bigger and grander and more saintly in your mind once they're gone. But Sharon has the opportunity to really focus on a relationship with the daughter that she does still have, and she doesn't take it. It seems as if Faith has always been a tool. She's always been a tool for Sharon to hop to the next man, and I want to believe that Sharon is better than that. Now, Sharon shows up at Nick's place this week, and after he's already gone through the entire revealing to Summer about her paternity, and suddenly we have a new Faith. The actress has been recast. It is another instance of, all right, well, I guess we just have a new kid now. I mean, it feels to me like Faith was recast, and they only aged her because now she has to have a speaking role, and all of a sudden, everything that Faith is saying is like, Mommy, can you marry Daddy instead of Avery? What a tool. That's the only reason it's there. It just drives me nuts that we're just supposed to buy into that, and this is all Sharon's motivation, and now she's in his house making lasagna and trying to forge a family, but it feels like it is coming out of a selfish place. It doesn't feel like it's coming from Sharon really wanting a father for her child. It comes from Sharon really needing another man to rescue her, and Nick finally sits Sharon down. He comes home after having revealed all of this, and he comes home and he finally figures, like, the secret's out. I might as well tell Sharon. She deserves to know. He tells her the whole truth about the paternity test, and Sharon is having the most understanding reaction. I mean, come on, Sharon's been planning her response speech for weeks. I'm sure she's been in the mirror at her house, like, practicing everything she's gonna say. This is part of, this plays into her plan. And she's telling Nick, I forgive you. I understand what you're going through. Hey, I'm here for you, Nick, because you've always been here for me. Well, not true. That's not true. I'm sorry, Sharon, but what about when Nick abandoned you as soon as you took up with Adam, and also abandoned you when you took over Newman Enterprises? Nick wasn't the one that was there for you when you were going through this bipolar disorder and stealing things. It was never Nick. And, like, I am not opposed to a Sharon and Nick reunion, but this it feels really unstable. It's not coming from a good place. Sharon is trying to rewrite history here, and it's not gonna work. Nick is in no condition to start up a new relationship right now. He has no idea where Avery stands. He's engaged, and he has no idea if that's going to float or not. And by the way, I got another good voicemail from Michael this week, who helped kind of enlighten me about Avery's reaction when she found out, or when Nick told her the truth. We talked a little bit about it last week at the bar. Nick tells Avery kind of enough information, but doesn't tell her that he was the one that switched the test. And because she didn't know that, Avery went off on Phyllis and totally assumed that Phyllis was the wrongdoer here. And a really, really good point that Michael made is that Phyllis is the paternity test result switcher of Genoa City. She totally switched the paternity tests, I think, and many times fudged attempts for Danny and Daniel. I mean, she went to great lengths to make Danny believe that Daniel was his child. So I don't know if Avery knows that of Phyllis's history, but it is not altogether surprising that Avery would have that type of reaction, or that anybody would have that type of reaction. Phyllis certainly has the history. Now, when everything boils down, though, I think that Avery will decide that she cannot stand by Nick through this. But that's just my opinion. We'll have to see about that, because there's every possibility that Avery could forgive Nick, put a huge kink in Sharon's plans, and maybe cause a fun new rivalry between Sharon and Avery. Nikki was very upset with Victor last week for making these huge, bold statements about how Billy is an addict, a worthless addict, when his wife is also an addict, and she took that very, very personally. And Victor, this week, decides to throw Nikki a bone by creating an MS fundraiser. He starts the ball rolling. Just says, oh yeah, next week we're having a big MS fundraiser and you get to plan it. Just throws the whole thing in her lap. As if, like, she has no plans, she has no life of her own, she has nothing else to do. Nikki is just supposed to drop everything to start planning this fundraiser that he just initiated, and that bothered me because I felt like, A, it was him trying to, like, make it up to her, and B, I think he was trying to distract her time because he's got other stuff going on that he doesn't want her involved in. Victor needs to break up Billy and Victoria's marriage. I mean, he's standing there. Well, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about all that later. And he wants Nikki to have something else to distract her from getting in his way. I wonder... Nikki seemed a couple of, months ago that she was getting involved with her doctor, or that the doctor was sort of interested in her and she was becoming friendly, and I wonder if this fundraiser is going to bring the doctor back into the mix and maybe stir up some romantic feelings. I don't know why I'm always a Nikki and Victor sucker, and I always hate any idea that they're going to break up, but at the same time I know Victor's such a big jerk. It's so hard to like him lately. Nick now has the unfortunate responsibility of going around and telling everybody that Summer is not actually his daughter. And he wanted to talk to Victor and Nikki together, but instead he got Victor alone and he told Victor about everything, about what he did to the paternity results, that Summer's not really his daughter, and in fact, Summer is Jack's daughter. And Victor, big surprise, has to immediately make it all about himself. He said something like, this figures, like, Jack is always trying to best me. What does this have to do with you and Jack? Victor cares less about Nick and Summer and the emotional ramifications of this, and he cares more about the fact that she's actually Jack's daughter. That's what he zeroes in on immediately. It's kind of disgusting. Nick had to refocus Victor, like, Dad, this is about my daughter. It's not about Jack. It's not about you. This is about Summer. And are you going to start to treat Summer differently now because she's Jack's? You can't do that. She needs you. You're her grandfather. You can't just go off into Victor land. To me, it just goes to show that Victor's first instinct is always about himself. His number one priority is to make sure that Victor is set for. I mean, it's incredible how freaking selfish he is. And it just bugged me. I mean, Victor came around eventually and he was like, yeah, okay, you're right. But it just bugged me that he did that. We're talking about your granddaughter's welfare here, Victor. The sun doesn't rise and set around your rivalry with Jack. Adam finds out that Melanie is working for Victor and he blackmails her in return to work for him. And Melanie has her first meeting with Victor where she's feeding him false information and trying to get information out of him. Victor sees through her right away. It really doesn't take very long. She's the worst spy because she just caves in the second anybody is sort of kind of onto her. Victor didn't know she was a spy. He just called her bluff. She really is. She's out of her league here. She can't hang with the big boys. But he tells her, of course, that, if she doesn't tell him the truth and do what he wants, that she's going to suffer the consequences. Everybody is always going to suffer the consequences of going against the great and powerful Victor Newman. Ridiculous. I mean, she scrambles, she tries to cover it up, but Victor's like, no, sorry. I mean, she's double-crossed and then double-crossed back both Victor and Adam, and then she has the nerve to ask Victor, well, wait, I could still spy for you. Maybe you can get me a job. Well, I could still work for you. I could still make it work. But Victor just fires her. He's like, forget it. I need loyalty, even though I don't always exude loyalty. So Victor leaves. Melanie has a meeting with Adam, and she pretty much tells him the whole thing. And Adam, you know, she asks him for help, but he just dumps her. He has no sympathy for her. She lied to him. He's not going to suffer a fool. So he just dumps her. Like, he, you know, I mean, she wanted to pursue a relationship with him. I don't know why he would trust that at all. So he just says, sorry, you're out in the cold. And he dumps her like father, like son. Where are we going with Adam, you guys? What's happening with Adam? Because I don't want him to get back together with Sharon at this point. I don't want him to get back together with Chelsea. I wouldn't be altogether too disappointed if they used Adam to ramp up a proper corporate storyline, because the whole thing that's going on with Victor and Adam at Newman Enterprises right now, I don't get why NR is letting too much time go on in between this storyline, and it's too convoluted. I've got so many other things I'm trying to keep track of. I don't know what's going on at Newman Enterprises. Like, they need to focus in on that. Don't just drop little seeds along the way, because, I mean, I don't know if I've got a particularly short attention span, but it's not holding any kind of water with me. You have to build it up and make me want it. So if Y&R could get a proper corporate storyline going, I would love to dig into what's going on with Victor and Adam, but it's just, it's not happening for me right now. And if, you know, if Adam wants to be without a love interest for a little while, I can deal with that. I mean, let him focus on just a job, and then let's let the whole his child storyline blow up. Let him find out that Chelsea's baby is actually his, and then let Adam take Chelsea to court to try to get custody. You know, Patricia has left me voicemails and mentioned this a couple times, that it would really be wonderful to see Adam raise his child as a single parent in much the same way that his mother raised him. I think that would be really cool. Like, I don't love Chelsea. I would not shed a tear if she was cut out of the picture completely. I mean, you know, I'm usually, I don't like parents being cut out of their children's lives, and I'm not saying that I don't want Chelsea to have a relationship with her child, but the lie has just become, you know, far too despicable for me. I don't want them together at all. I've really lost any kind of redeemability for Chelsea at this point, but I would love to see Adam raising his child and maybe then get involved in a new healthy relationship for once. Actually, 2 people called into my voicemail this week and mentioned the possibility of a coupling between Adam and Leslie. What do you guys think about that? Adam and Leslie, could that be a hot couple? Jeff and Anita had dinner at Chelsea and Dylan's warehouse/house this week, and it was actually really good to see Jeff back in action. He looked good. I think the actor had been sick. I think that he maybe had cancer or something of the like. That may be a rumor. I'm sorry, forgive me if that's not correct, but I do know that he was sick for a while, but he looked really healthy, and Jeff was really funny this week. I mean, he and Anita are maybe trying to get to know Dylan and Chelsea. This is Jeff's first trip to their apartment, and he's just trying to ask questions about the baby, and he's being funny, like, so what are you gonna name the kid, Jeff or Jeffwina? He just has a really good, like, comedic relief that he brings into the scene, and that made me really enjoy that lighthearted moment in what's otherwise so much seriousness and so much cutesiness. But I can't really blame, I guess, Anita in some ways for being concerned about her daughter. Dylan, I mean, she went from living in this hoity-toity hotel to living in this warehouse building that doesn't even have a kitchen. They talked about that a little bit this week. Dylan said, well, we got a refrigerator and a hot plate. I mean, I know he's working on it, and I'm sure there's going to be a big reveal of how grand their new apartment is, but at the same time, it will be hard to live in a place with no kitchen. Where are you guys eating? I mean, he just bought a business that was failing and not making any money, so where's he getting money? And it seems like all of Chelsea's money is wrapped up in the business that she is never at these days because she's too busy keeping up with her lie. Oh, I just don't know. But Anita was on surprisingly good behavior. They were really trying to make an effort. So that was a fun little scene. Stitch is still hanging around Dylan, and I tell you, they're talking about, like, Dylan opened up to Stitch a little bit, telling him that Chelsea and Adam were married at the time when they conceived the child, and Dylan was forthright about the fact that there was a paternity question. And Stitch said, you know, did you not question that? And Dylan said, no, I trust her. You know, I don't need to question it. I am really hoping that Stitch gets wise and starts prodding Dylan in the direction of trying to find out the actual paternity of the baby. You know, I think Stitch has a child of his own. He might very well be the person to help Dylan along that path. Dylan seems to trust him. They have a lot in common. Instead, this week it seemed more that Stitch's role was to encourage Dylan to open up about everything that happened in Afghanistan. Last week, Dylan was having bad dreams, and it was enough to really cause Chelsea to question, because just as Stitch was talking to Dylan about Afghanistan, Chelsea goes to Avery to ask her questions about Dylan. Now, what did you guys think of that? Because I felt like, why would you go to his ex-girlfriend instead of just going to him directly? I felt like it was kind of inappropriate. I mean, it drudged up a lot of stuff for Avery too. Avery told Chelsea about Dylan's unit and the fact that everyone was wiped out in it, and Avery even went so far as to recount how she learned that Dylan was presumed dead. Chelsea had no idea about any of this, which frankly just goes to show how very little Chelsea and Dylan know about each other. I mean, Dylan had opened up to Sharon more than he did Chelsea. They don't know each other very well. Yet they're in love and they're having a baby, and it just seems that they focus so hardcore on the emotions and they're so in love when they just really have not had much time to dig into who each other really is. Now, after this, Chelsea goes home to Dylan. Dylan's a little more open to talk about it, so Chelsea asks him about what happened, and with a little bit of hesitation, Dylan opens up about how his unit was wiped out, and that there was a family that that saved his life but lost theirs. That seemed to be implied that there was a siege on the house. Everyone, maybe because they were harboring an enemy soldier, I don't know, but the Afghani father has a young child and gives the child to Dylan and says, you know, protect her. You know, the most important thing is, you know, if we're all going to die, you take my child and get out. So Dylan takes the child, runs into the mountains, somehow escapes, and tries to get the child to safety, tries to get him and the child to safety. It's a situation where he doesn't know where, you know, there's no constant source of food, there's no constant source of water. I don't know how old the child was, but Dylan is just crazy. I mean, I think, I can't imagine what it would feel like having just lost everyone in his unit, including someone who he considered a brother, watched him die, then to feel as if your life was spared, and by the grace of a wonderful family, and to know that your presence in their life caused them to lose their life, and now the one thing that he could possibly do to redeem it would be to get this child to safety and cause her to be healthy. And I think, you know, maybe in his mind, who knows, like, it would be okay. Maybe he would take the child back with him. Maybe he could raise the child. But unfortunately, by the time he got to a camp where he was able to get medical attention and food and water, the child had already died. And the element of this that was particularly, that stuck with me particularly, was that Dylan said he didn't know when the child died. He doesn't know if the child died a day, 2 days before he even reached the camp. The image of Dylan running around struggling for survival with a child that could have already been dead. Yeah, that is intense. I mean, I can't imagine how heavy that weight must be. I mean, that whole story really helped connect me into Dylan, really helped give me a better insight into who his character is, why he is, how he is. It was just wow. Wow. It's amazing that the PTSD that he is experiencing, post-traumatic stress disorder that he may be experiencing now, is not worse than it is. It's almost amazing that he is as stable as he is, because that seems like it would be something that, I mean, people don't recover from that. That's the kind of thing that you can't get rid of. It doesn't matter what you do in your life, that is always going to be there. It was very, very, very intense. And it reminds me of a voicemail I received again from Michael, who was theorizing that maybe Dylan is keeping a secret of his own. Maybe Dylan knows that he can't have kids, or maybe Dylan knows that this kid isn't his. Maybe Dylan is not as clueless about what Chelsea's what Chelsea's trying to pull over on him as we think. Again, PTSD is very serious, and if now we have the knowledge that Dylan was running around with this child for possibly days who was already dead, and he mentioned, I was just so focused on what I had to do that I like, he had a cognitive dissonance there, you know, and that you can't help but wonder, could that be what's happening now? Could he be so focused on the goal of having the child and helping Chelsea through this and giving him a reason to feel valid, like his life was spared for a reason, that he is ignoring the lie? I think that's a really excellent point. I think it would add a really interesting layer to this. It would give Dylan just almost like a not so perfect aspect of his personality that I think he needs. He feels that he needs a reason to live. Avery was that. He felt like maybe his whole unit was wiped out and maybe this whole family died, and the child and everything that he went through was so that he could come back, be with Avery, try to live a life. She wasn't able to be with him, and so now he's trying to create something else. And oh my goodness, Chelsea was trying to talk him through that, make him feel like she needed him, that his life wasn't meaningless, that, in fact, like, she was all talking about maybe this is God's plan. Like, it's God's plan that you would deceive this man further, that you would contribute to the pain that he's already feeling. Yeah, I think Chelsea feels like now she's doing Dylan a favor by lying to him. And she's, like, bought into it completely on her own as well. Like, I think Chelsea has fully convinced herself that Dylan is the father of the child and that it's God's plan and this is what it needs to be. I don't doubt that Chelsea cares about him. I think it is obvious that she cares about him very, very deeply. But it is another form of cognitive dissonance. You know, she's taken herself out of the reality of the situation as a means to an end. So they do have that in common. I think that Chelsea cares about Dylan in so much as it doesn't interfere with her plans. I'm sorry, Chelsea, but the revelation of Dylan's character and who he is really just, it makes the deceit feel bigger. It makes the con feel bigger that you're trying to pull off. He is only going to hurt more, way, way more. And no matter how much you wish in your head that this was his baby, it's not. You are creating a fairy tale in your mind, and it's destructive. You manipulated this poor man, and you will end up hurting him far, beyond what he's already feeling. And what I hope could be the twist is that when Dylan does find out that this is not his child, I wonder if that is going to be the catalyst for turning him a little darker. I think that the message has been received and said by many, many people that the Dylan character is just way too sticky sweet. He has potential. Dylan's character has potential. There needs to be something in there that just makes him a little less perfect. And I think that this is a really good start. I think there is a very good possibility that when he finds out the truth, it could change the course of his life and maybe turn him a little bit to the dark side. Chloe is really being there for Billy during this time where he's struggling with his addiction. He feels uncertain in his marriage to Victoria, and Chloe even tells him, Victoria might not be there for you right now, but I am. She's really establishing herself as a friend, which I think he needs. Billy needs someone to jog him back into reality, to notice when he is having faulty thinking, destructive thinking, and pushing him, back toward the right path. I mean, Chloe even talks to him about his triggers and what it is to be an addict, and that he needs to keep an eye out for these triggers. And Billy is, a lot of times, I think he wants to tell people what they want to hear, and he wants to say, I'll do better next time. It's very typical. I feel like I know this person, this type of person, which is, it is very good, for everything I say about Billy, it's a good character because it's effective, because I feel like I know that guy. I feel like I've been there. I have relatives it just kind of reminds me of. The problem is, as Billy is kind of making excuses and wanting to tell people what they want to hear, Chloe calls him out because if you're going to get better, you got to do it for yourself, she tells him. You don't want to only go to Gamblers Anonymous just so that you can make Victoria happy and get your marriage back, because that is going to cause you to stray away from it again. It's not true healing. And at the same time, Nikki is encouraging Victoria to help him through this, to not abandon him, to, he's your husband, he's having this problem right now, and yes, he's screwed up, but I mean, in some ways it's like, if you're not there for him, someone else is going to be, and that's the truth. So Victoria decides, all right, I'm going to give Billy a second chance. She meets him at the bar where he's alone, or the restaurant where he's alone. And they start to have a conversation, and there's this guy at the bar who's given Billy the eye, and Victoria says, oh, well, do you need to handle whatever that is? And Billy just says, oh, no, he's one of my purveyors, no big deal. Victoria says, why don't you just go take care of it, because the guy is obviously staring us down. And Billy is like, all right. He goes over to the guy, says, what, not now, now's not a good time. But the guy says, it's always a good time to get your winnings. So he hands him over a little envelope that's full of cash, and Victoria catches him. She sees the whole thing, hears the whole thing, realizes that nothing has changed. In this amount of time where they've been separated, he's still gambling. He's still doing the same destructive behavior, and in fact, he had told Chloe the scene before, he hasn't even gone to a gambler's meeting, anonymous meeting. So is he really even trying? Now, meanwhile, Nikki and Victor are sitting in their living room, and Nikki's bouncing little Johnny on her knee, and Victor's talking openly about what a scumbag this kid's father is, and Nikki says, don't do that in front of Johnny. Victor's like, oh, he can't understand what I'm saying. And so Victor's going off about everything, how Billy's no good, Nick, and Victor lets slip. There's a little slip, which at first I thought, oh, did Eric Braeden forget his line? No, of course not. Eric Braeden does not make mistakes. What am I thinking? He says something to the effect of, and I'm probably going to get the line wrong, but the sentiment is correct. Something about like, Billy is going to self-destruct, or he's going to lose Victoria, whether I'm manipulating him or manipulating the situation. Gosh, I wish I could remember what it was, but basically Victor said something like, manipulating him, I mean the situation, and it was just like a weird slip where I thought, huh. And then it kind of becomes revealed later that Victor was the one that probably hired that guy at the bar to go give Billy his earnings at the same time that Victoria was going to be there. Victor is still pulling the strings with this whole puppet show. And I think Victor didn't do anything that was necessarily dishonest. Like, the guy was gonna go deliver Billy's money anyway. Victor just made sure that the timing was correct so that his daughter could see the truth. So in some ways, I don't totally think Victor did something horrible there. To me, I've said it a million times, I kind of understand where Victor's coming from. He doesn't want Victoria and Billy involved. I personally wouldn't be hiring people to make that happen, but then again, I'm not Victor Newman. So Victoria is so upset with Billy. She says, I was going to give you a second chance and now I'm not going to. So their relationship is on rockier ground than ever. Chloe and Kevin at the same time are still having trouble. They're not together. And Kevin decides to go out and get a job at the police station. He's been volunteering there, and now they've given him a job as the lead computer guy. So he's all happy with himself. He goes to Chloe and says, look, I got a job and I did it for you. And Chloe says, it's kind of funny. I just had this conversation with Billy. If you're doing it for me, you're not doing it for the right reasons. And it is very true. You have to want change for yourself. So Chloe pretty much turns him away and says sorry. But at the same time, it's like she's fed up with Kevin. She's done with him and his weird stealing addiction. But at the same time, she's being there for Billy. She really wants to comfort him. And the next day, or the next scene, Billy and Chloe are at the Restless Style. Why do you call it Restless Style? Whatever, the fashion. Does Chloe and Chelsea's business even have a name? I guess I should just call it Jabot, the Jabot fashion office. Chelsea is gone for the day, so Chloe and Billy are alone together in that office, and she's trying to comfort him. Billy is really far down. He's just been rejected by Victoria again. He realizes that he just screwed up again, and Chloe just gets real close in on his face and tries to convince him that he's a good man. He's a good father. And then she kisses him. She just plants one right on his face. Like, I was so shocked. I didn't see that coming. Like, I thought, well, why did she do that? Why did you do that? The friendship was going so well, and then it just now is on a different level. And I know there's a lot of people who want Billy and Chloe together, and I could be on board with that, but at the same time, it feels a little rushed to me. It feels like another instance where YNR is just like, pew, 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 just firing out bullets, rather than building actual moments, because to me that just felt way too quick. It felt totally inappropriate, frankly, considering the fact that he's still married. I mean, it's Chloe grasping for something, Billy grasping for something. Everybody's in the same situation. It's a lot the same as Sharon with Nick. I mean, it's not a relationship based on a slow burn. It's like, I don't know, I felt like things were going really well with Chloe and Billy as a friendship, and they were being supportive, and I could definitely be for a relationship with Billy and Chloe, but I don't think this relationship should be born out of a broken place. Leslie mentioned this week that Rose died in 2007. 2007 was the year that Drusilla died, was the year that Neil went on his drunken bender. It's hard because anything having to do with Drew, it automatically starts coming up that Drusilla's coming back. That could be the big secret. Drusilla is behind all of this, and I do kind of wish it was true. There's a part of me that would love to see Drusilla back, but I just think it's probably never going to happen. I don't know. I think we're headed down a totally different path. Neil started having these flashback memories of being on a bender during that time when he was mourning his wife. Y&R just like created this flashback scene. I like real flashbacks, but you know, like, it's so convenient. Neil's sitting in a bar. He has, and then it goes down and there's a napkin that says Evanston Pub, which is where Rose, I guess, lived and died. And then the next scene, it's the same thing, only now he's looking at a newspaper headline that says executive's wife killed in bizarre accident or something like that. And it's just like, geez, Y&R, come on. Like, that was kind of obvious. I don't know. So the question is, what did Neil do? He was drunk, he was on a bender, Rose is dead, what happened? Did he have like some kind of drunk driving incident where he killed her and like maybe her daughter is now seeking revenge, or I don't know. I had theorized last week that Hillary was Neil's daughter. They had a moment at that party, at the Lily and Kane's kids' birthday party, where they seemed like they knew each other. So I thought, well, maybe Hillary is Neil's daughter, but I just don't even know if that's possible, because I guess Rose would have had to have died at least 9 months after whatever Neil did on his drunken bender. So I'm not totally sure where this is going, but I did notice that the girl who plays Hillary is now in the opening credits, so obviously Y&R is going to do something with her, something significant with her. I don't exactly know what it is. Also, I am asking myself, because there was this little scene, little interaction between Lily and Mason, I wonder, is there any way that Mason could factor into this whole Rose-Neil situation somehow? I mean, Y&R has to be keeping him around for a reason. Tyler got a job, new job, working for a firm in New York, except he still gets to work out of Genoa City. He comes in with this news, and Lily hears it, and she's visibly upset at the idea that he could be leaving. And you know, but he reveals that he's still staying, and then it's just back to the same old sexual tension. So Tyler decides that he's going to throw a party at him and Noah's apartment. By the way, I just wish that apartment was better. It's so boring and bland and yuck. I want to spend time there. It just looks so, it's too real, you know what I mean? Like, it's just too real. It's too bachelor pad. They need to do something cool with that place. They've probably blown their entire, Y&R's probably blown their entire set budget on Dylan's place, and all redoing all the restaurants and everything, for crying out loud. Victoria's house. So anyway, that apartment's not great, but it was kind of cool to see the party atmosphere. I think the actor who plays Tyler has become way more comfortable on the set. He just seems like a little more fun, a little more just relaxed. He looks looser than he did before, and it was nice to see him partying with Noah. I like his relationship, his friendship with Noah. I was a little bit shocked at Noah all of a sudden striking up a friendship with Summer's bad friend, like the bad friend that's been leading Summer toward all kinds of bad things is now seeming like she's trying to get involved with Noah. Is that gonna happen? I don't know. Why would they want him to be involved with one of his sister's friends that's A, underage, and B, kind of a bad influence? I don't know. What'd you guys think about that? Good question. Now, Abby gets invited to this party, and she and Tyler start to hit it off right away. She seems more insecure a little bit. She says something like, "Am I really even your type? You know, you seem to like brunette models, and here I am, a blonde." And he just like takes a lock of her hair and feels it a little bit, and then grabs her and kind of goes off into a corner, and they start making out. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa! Again, what? Who? Kid? What? I mean, it's so quick. It's too quick. Like, why? What is the problem with the slow burn romance? I mean, geez. I don't know. It's not going to turn into a relationship right away anyway. Obviously, Tyler is still hung up on Lily. I mean, I guess if you can't get yourself a Winters girl, though, you can get yourself a Newman. That would be a pretty big coup. But Abby is trying to be reformed. She doesn't want to be the naked heiress anymore. She wants to be mature, and she doesn't want to jump into relationships anymore. She wants to really think it through. So she pulls away from this makeout session with Tyler and she leaves. But I'm telling you, I think she probably just had to go home to change her dress. The 30-day timeline has come to an end. Michael told Lauren he would give her 30 days to decide whether or not their relationship would move forward, and if not, a bomb would go off. It did seem like Lauren was super focused on 30 days, like, oh my god, like there's a clock ticking, if it's almost 30 days, you know? It was, she was very, very focused on that, and in fact, Lauren got a little aggressive with Michael, like giving him this desperate plea to stay together. Just please give it more time. They're really connecting and I don't want it to end. And it's weird because they were actually really connecting. It seemed like the relationship was getting better. I would have gone with a go with the flow sort of thing, but Lauren really put the pressure on it and it worked. Michael decided to recommit himself to his marriage, and they had this moment where they ceremoniously ripped up the divorce papers that Michael had drawn up. And I mean, I can understand, I think, that Lauren just didn't want to turn around one day and all of a sudden Michael had divorced her. I think she wanted him to make up his mind about whether or not he actually wanted to move forward. And, you know, all things having fleshed out, I'm glad that Michael and Lauren were able to overcome it. I think that they are a really good couple, and frankly, this is the most interesting thing on the show right now for me, and I'm excited to talk about it. I've been saving it for last. So just as Michael and Lauren are reuniting, Fenn shows up on the boulevard looking all tweaked out, and he asks Carmine to do him a favor and get him some drugs. Like, you go to one warehouse party with a goth chick and suddenly Carmine's your drug dealer. Suddenly you're that tweaked out. Carmine was shocked. He said no to Fenn, but at the same time, the jerk didn't really even attempt to stop the kid. Carmine focused all his energy on being like, I don't deal drugs, what make you think I deal drugs? But he should have been like, Fenn, whoa, buddy. Like, instead of just calling him buddy, maybe showing some ounce of concern, like, whoa, man, like, how'd you get here? I didn't sense any kind of concern from Carmine until Carmine goes to take out the trash in the alley, and guess what? Fenn is passed out with a little baggie next to him, so he's OD'd. Where does this even come from? Carmine calls 911 and calls Michael and Lauren. I'm surprised they even picked up the phone at all. And but they all go to the hospital. Michael and Lauren rush in. Their son's in a hospital bed. He's almost OD'd. My question is, how did Lauren and Michael miss this, that this was happening? I mean, I know that they were focused on their relationship, but as far as I know, Fenn is still living at home. So I'm surprised that they didn't notice that he was seeming strung out. I mean, it was revealed that what he was doing was methamphetamines. Meth? How do you not notice that somebody's all of a sudden on meth? That is severe. Meth is severe. Like, we've had a total of maybe, 4 scenes leading up to meth? Okay, first we had Fenn going to that graduation party at Summers and having a drink of alcohol. Then he goes to the warehouse party. It has alcohol and pot. Then next thing we know, he's trying to score pills at the back of Crimson Lights. And now meth? Like, first of all, I think it's shocking that Fenn would be doing meth. I mean, he's, all things considered, he's a rich kid. He goes to a private school. If he was going around to his friends' parents' medicine cabinets and maybe getting some prescription drugs, I could see. But meth? I mean, who does meth? I mean, is it really that slippery a slope from alcohol to meth in the matter of 4 scenes. Like, Y&R, it would have been better for us to see and feel and be involved in Fenn's drug problem. Like, the fact that they just skipped right to an OD is shocking to me, and it feels again like an example where Y&R is taking these emotional shortcuts. How am I supposed to feel anything for Fenn when this just came out of the woodwork, out of nowhere? I mean, I think it would have been way interesting if they could have taken their time a little bit more and maybe shown Fenn, like, in his desperation and maybe how did he get to meth? Who is like, I'm sorry, maybe this is just me in my world, maybe my world is limited, but who is like, hey, you want some meth? And they're like, sure. I mean, especially as a rich kid, like, that just doesn't seem like a huge problem in the rich kid community. Prescription pills I could have seen, but meth just is so far out of left field for me. I don't know, I almost can't believe it. And I feel like this whole Fenn drug problem thing was totally just as a storyline, as a plot line. It was just like there to kind of facilitate more problems between Lauren and Michael and Carmine. It wasn't really ever about Fenn. And if Y&R, like, meth is freaking serious. Like, doing meth is like on the level of smoking crack. And you can't just do it once or twice and then just be done with it. Like, if Y&R doesn't at least acknowledge that Fenn is going to have to go through some kind of rehab, I'm going to be really, really freaking irritated, because he's not just on meth 1 second and then the next minute he's just totally fine and involved in this whatever's going to go on between Carmine and his family. Like, Fenn is going to need to go through rehab. They cannot just write this into the story and then brush it off. Like, that's so severe. Am I the only one that feels that way? Come on. It's gonna be bad when it all boils out. It's totally just to create more problems for Michael and Lauren and Carmine. Like, in Carmine's hanging around the hospital, and in his twisted skull, I think Carmine probably sees this as an opportunity to be there for Lauren, and it's not going to work. Like, Carmine has got to accept some level of responsibility for this. Carmine, in a lot of ways, was a catalyst. Carmine was there through Fenn's very brief downfall to give him bad advice along the way. If Carmine never would have told Fenn to go after Summer and, like, get all aggressive with her the way Carmine is doing with Lauren, Fenn never would have got that caught. He never would have, like, leapt on Summer. He never would have had that caught on videotape. He never would have been bullied, which would have not forced him onto the outside of his teen community, which would not have led to him now getting involved with bad kids and now doing severe drugs. So Carmine has to take some responsibility for this, and Fenn, I think, feels like just as betrayed by his parents in this situation as Carmine. Like, Fenn comes out of the OD drug coma and his first words are Carmine. So Fenn is fingering Carmine for this whole thing. Like, he needs to make Carmine the scapegoat, and so now Carmine has done a lot of bad things, but I mean, now all of a sudden he is getting like seriously like messed up. Like, his first words coming out are Carmine. Michael hears that. Michael is like blown up. Michael rushes to the police station to Paul, tells Paul that they need to arrest Carmine immediately. Michael wants Carmine's head on a platter. It's just like so incredibly, like, I can't believe we're here. It was like Michael's saying all these horrible things about Carmine, which most are true, but the main thing isn't. And I just have to mention that it was pretty rich, Kevin standing in the background for that scene, and saying something to Paul like, well, everybody knows that Carmine is a lowlife and he should be in jail. Well, let's see, Kevin, you're kind of a lowlife at this point too. So I can't even believe I feel like I'm defending blaming Carmine at this point, but for crying out loud, Michael really wants Carmine to pay. Paul goes down to the hospital and tells Carmine that he has to come down to the station with him, which, by the way, was not before Michael pretty much was ready to fight physically with Carmine. So Carmine goes down to the station, and Paul's had his eye on him forever, so he's questioning him, and Carmine says, I'm not telling you anything without a lawyer, and that's when Leslie shows up. So Leslie is his lawyer now, and he's gonna need it because Fen is like straight up 100% lying. As Fen comes to, he starts telling Michael and Lauren that Carmine was the one that gave him the drugs. Like, in fact, Fen said he came looking for me. So in Michael and Lauren's mind, Carmine intentionally set out to hook their kid on drugs, which is horrible. It's like one of the most horrible things you can even think of. He's just a kid, but like Fen, I think from his perspective, knows that he's in trouble. He's just like gone all the way down with his drug problem. Now he's woken up in a hospital bed. He knows he's in trouble, and to quickly deflect attention away from himself, he puts it onto Carmine. It's like a double convenient. He doesn't have to tell the truth, and Carmine can take the rap for the whole thing, and he can get revenge on Carmine because he feels betrayed by him. So, like, Fen has concocted this horrible situation, this horrible scenario that's beyond anything that's even occurred yet. And Michael and Lauren are almost like, really? Almost like not wanting to, like, surprised by this, of course. And so they have this moment of doubt. And Michael can't doubt. Like, Michael is now in a situation where he has to believe his son, even though now we know he's lying. Michael didn't believe Fen before when he was telling the truth about everything that had gone on with Jamie and him trying to kill him, and that didn't happen. And so Michael's not about to make that same mistake twice. He has to believe his son. Not believing his son nearly destroyed his marriage. This is by far the best thing on the show right now. Everything is coming to a boil. Everything is coming to a head. Either Michael or Carmine are going to budge sooner or later, as if Michael didn't have enough reason to want to kill Carmine. Now it is over the top. I think Carmine is going to end up dead, and from Fen's perspective, he's never going to be able to erase that. He's always going to know that his lie set this chain of events into motion, and you can't go back from that. Like, once a guy is dead, yeah, that's it. That's the end of story. And it has just really created an incredible twist on an already twisty situation, because I'm having a moment, a brief moment of feeling sympathy for Carmine. Because for once, he didn't do the wrong thing. Okay, you guys, that is it for me. I have no idea how long I talked, but I have a feeling it's a really long time. But there was so much to say, so much going on, and now you can feel free to talk back to me. If you want to leave me a text comment here in the text box below, I love reading everything that you guys have to say. You're also more than welcome to call into my voicemail and leave me a voice comment, 309-588-4569. I love hearing your perspectives. It really makes a difference to me. So thank you to everybody who's called and left messages. It totally lights up my week, and I look forward to hearing from you again to see what you think about all of this drama. All right, I love you guys, and I'll talk to you again next week. All right, bye.